Hello everyone. In this video we are going to do a very simple Python program. This is for beginners, and if you need to actually watch the video a bit faster, set it to 125 on 150 because I'm going to explain things very slowly because I want beginners to actually understand what's going on. It won't be a long video. This exercise is going to be a program of around 60 to 70 lines of code. And I'm going to first do a presentation, just explain what is needed for this program, what is the rationale behind it, and how you can actually organize and structure your program in a more efficient way, right? All right, so let's get started. What are we going to build? So we are basically going to build a Cards Against Humanity program. This is a game that's ideal for people that are with friends, having a fun time, having a few drinks perhaps. Basically, one takes a black card which contains a phrase that has to be filled in with another phrase that comes from the white cards. And each of the participants of the game picks a white card, and then combined they make up a funny phrase, let's say, right? You can have more information about this in cardsagainsthumanity.com, which is the website for this game. And it's a very simple game, basically. It's just to have fun at the end of the day. So just a quick overview. What do we need in this program, right? So we need to fetch data from a website, right? There are a couple of URLs for this game that I'm going to present later on. So basically all the cards are contained in this URL, and the only thing we need to do is fetch that data, get it from the website and bring it to our program, and then manipulate this data to actually make something out of it, right? We need to store usernames. So basically we are going to ask the user how many people is going to be playing and what are the names of these people, right? So we need to store that somewhere. That's going to be a list in Python. We need to store the cards after fetching them. So there's going to be another list for each of the card deck, right? So we have the black cards and the white cards. So we have to store each of them separately. We need to loop through some options, right? So the moment we start our program, we are going to enter into a loop. A loop is a repetition, right? So we are going to ask the player, okay, what do you want to do now? Do you want to play? Okay, so enter these names, or do you want to quit? So they basically exit the game. That's all going to be working inside of a loop. I'm going to explain that a bit better when we actually get started, right? Next, so some function requirements. I just like to actually draw this before we get started, not to jump into programming. It would be more difficult for you to actually understand what's going on if I just jump and start the coding, right? So first we need a function to print white cards. So we're going to pass the players, for example, to this function, and the deck of cards, in this case, the white cards. And inside of this function, there's going to be an iteration, right? So when we start coding it, you're going to see how actually simple this is. Print black card, the same. You pass the one black card because that's all we need. We pass one black card. We don't pass any players, and that's going to be displayed to the user, right? So fetch data, that's another function. We are going to pass this function the URL where the cards are, and that function is going to execute a sort of fetch, function that's going to actually get all of that information from the URL. We also need another function for playing the game. Whenever the user enters play, for example, it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be play, but I think that's an easy way to identify it. Basically, we pass the players, we pass the black cards and the white cards, and the game is going to execute the whole function, the whole game, right? And a quit message. So if the user basically has two options: it either plays or it either quits. If they quit, so we present a message, say goodbye, thanks for playing the game, bye-bye. Right. That's pretty much it. Flow of execution. So as I said, we have a while loop that's going to be executed. We present the user with some introductory information. We ask them if they want to play or quit. If they select play, we run play again function, which we're going to write. If they say no, I'm done here, I want to quit, they enter quit message, and we end execution. That's pretty much it. There's going to be a few, technicalities, but you will see. If you want to get this deck, I'm going to leave it in the description of this video, and you can actually go and check these URLs. There are actually 2 more URLs for the black cards, but I'm going to work with one for now. And as an exercise, I'm actually going to ask you to modify this function to actually get all of the data from the black cards URL. The source code is on GitHub. You can actually get this deck and the source code, okay? Right, so just to present you what we have in this URL, that's basically it. There we have cards equal blah, 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 blah. These are the black cards. And this is a text file. This is not ideal, right? To go to a website and get a .txt file. Usually it's a JSON file, XML file, something like that. But in this case, that's what they gave us, and we're going to work with that. Okay, it's still data, but it's just you have to do an extra step to manipulate it. All right, so let's get started. We have all of this information, and now we're going to start. I'm going to be using REPL. REPL is really, really good. You don't have to install anything in your program. Just go to REPL.it, open an account, and you will just get to code in a matter of seconds, basically, right? So first of all, we need to import random, and you will see why we need random in a second. That's a Python library, by the way. We also need to import URL lib3. Okay. These are basically the imports that we need. I'm going to add a separator here just to keep the code clean. We are not going to import anything else for now. And now we are going to start working on the functions, right? So let me just add a comment here for functions. These are the functions that are going to be executed within the while loop, okay? Right, so the first function that we need is, we need to define the print black card, as I mentioned earlier. Print black card. And that's gonna take a card. That's going to be, I'm gonna add a few of, formatting just to make it look slightly better than it would otherwise. Like this, for example, and then let's say that I'm gonna copy this. And here I'm going to add a bit of space. And this is gonna be random dot choice. Choice is a function which is a method which is within the random library, right? And that basically takes a list element, which is going to be card, and it prints a random element out of that. Actually, this should be called cards, because that's going to be taking a list of cards, not one card. You pass a list of cards, and that's going to randomize the whole thing and give you one card out of that many cards that you're passing it, okay? So that looks kind of nice for now. Okay, so we have our first function. Second one that we need is, let me just remove this a little bit. Okay, all good. So we need a second one, which is going to be define print white cards. Okay, so that the same thing, that's going to take white cards, the deck of white cards. Print white cards. The only difference in this one is that we need to pass the players, right? So the players is going to be a list. We need to pass the players because each player is going to take a white card. So we need to combine these two together, right? Once we are actually doing the function. And we pass the cards as well, okay? How are we going to do that? So we know we are going to receive a list of players and we know we're going to receive a list of cards, right? We need a for loop, obviously, because we are going to loop through each player, okay? And each player is going to print a random white card, okay? That's just very basic. Sometimes if you have too much players, one player could actually pick the same card. I believe it would happen because we have the random dot choice, but that's, I want to keep it simple for now. We could think about that later on. That's four player in players. That's a for loop there. Players is our list. Print, right? Just gonna add a bit of format in here as well. Or a little bit of space here as well. And then I'm going to concatenate player. That's coming from this for loop here. So for each player in players, we are gonna print a player. And we concatenate the card basically, right? So we have this here, and then we have random dot choice cards. And if this is not making a lot of sense, it's going to make sense now when we test these functions, right? We are going to test it with some random data to start with, okay? So that's pretty much it. How does this work? Let's say we're going to test now the second function, the print white cards. So let's call that. To call function, it's a print. You have to call, print white cards, right? So that's you call in a function. We know it takes two lists. One is going to take players. Let's say we create some random players here. We're going to create Felipe. We're going to create Josh, for example, and Josh, and the next player is going to be Maria. Okay, so we are passing a list of players first. Second, we're going to pass a list of cards. Let's say that we create some dummy cards. Card 1, and card 2, and card 3, right? Okay, so let's save this and let's run to see what happens. Right, so Felipe picked card 2, Josh picked card 1, and Maria picked card 2 as well. So we have a bit of a repetition here, which is normal because we don't have that many cards and we are not doing anything to actually avoid this repetition, but it's fine for now. We don't really need to worry too much about it. If you try again, it's probably going to be slightly different. So yeah, Felipe card 1, and card 2. You see what I mean? Once we have this data populated from the actual cards, that's going to be randomized as well, and you will have your players, and each player is going to have a card. So you'll see that working very well. Now, what else do we need to do now? So we have print white cards and we have print black cards. We need to fetch the data. Let's do the data fetching mechanism right now. So okay, def fetch data, right? What do we need for this right now? So we need to pass a URL, right? So we have the URLs that I presented earlier that contain the data. So we are going to give this variable name, yeah, whatever you want, but I'll call it URL in this case. Right, so we have URL lib3, which we're going to use now, okay? And let's say that we call this variable HTTP. Variable names can be whatever you want. I just try to give them reasonable names so you don't get lost, but basically this is just the HTTP variable, which is going to call URL lib lib3, right? dot, we need a method called pool manager, right? We need this. Then we need to actually handle the response. I'm gonna create a variable called response, which is going to be http dot request. This is going to be a get method, get all capitals, and we pass the URL here. Okay, pass the URL, and now what we need to do is to actually create another function, another variable, sorry, for data. That's going to contain the response dot data dot decode. We need to pass UTF-8 here. UTF-8. That's the encoding, right? And let's try this. Let's try this as it is, right? So let's give it a return. We need to return data, actually. We need to return data, yes. Okay, so we are good to go. This is basically what we need for this function, but we need to do a few extra things to clean the data, but I'm just gonna show you how it works, okay? Now we need to fetch, we need to print all of this, fetch data, and we need to pass the URL. Which URL? Let's go back here and take this URL from here. Right, so this has to be within quotes. Now we have this URL here, and we are going to execute this program, right? Okay. All right, so we have an error. Just give me 1 second. Fetch data, pool manager, URL, that's the URL, return data. Okay. Place data.decode, that's correct. Right. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. There's an extra space, which shouldn't be here. Just make sure you don't leave any extra spaces within the string, okay? Because that's going to be interpreted as part of the text URL, okay? So now we have a bunch of data, and as I told you before, we have to do a bit of cleaning here. We have this, and then as a separator, we don't have commas, but we have this thing, less than, greater than sign. That separates each card, basically, right? So we need to find a mechanism now to actually get rid of this. How do we do it? Well, it's not that complicated, to be honest with you. I just skip this function call for now. My recommendation is to use replace. In this case, I would do data.replace. We know that we need cards equal. We need to get rid of that from the URL, and that's going to be replaced by nothing, right? And the moment we return the data, we actually need to split each card within the list by something. So a simple function that we can use is data.split, right? And as I said, the separator that we have is less than, greater than sign, right? I hope this makes sense. We can actually see that in the data, right? Each of them is being separated by less than, greater than, and then we have at the beginning cards, which we're going to get rid of. Now let's give this a go. We are calling the function down here. Right, so that gave me a bunch of data right here. And as you can see, there is a comma instead of a greater than sign. And we cannot differentiate it that well, but yeah, you see, this is all within a within a list element. Okay, this should have worked, but it doesn't seem to be working correctly. We're gonna have a look later on. We'll keep going for now, and I'll try to figure that out later, but it's fine. Right, we'll get rid of this for now, and we need another function. We need the play game function now. Now that's kind of the most important function, because without it, you won't be able to play the game, right? So define play game underscore game, right? What do we need to play the game? So we need a few things. We need players, right, to play the game. We need the black cards. I'm gonna call this B cards. It's a variable name. You can call it whatever you want, but that's going to define or identify the black cards basically within the function itself. Then we need the white cards as well, and some indentation here. And now let's say that we are going to print some information to the user. Print. And now let's start playing. Start playing. Let's start playing, comma. I need to add a dot join here. Sorry. This, comma. Because the thing is, I want to get rid of wait a second. Now we have it. Dot join players. I want to join all the players. Okay, that's gonna make a bit more sense now in a second. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to print some information, some welcoming information. Let's say that you enter 3 players, right? Maria, Josh, and Winston. So this print is going to actually greet them and say, now let's start playing Josh, Maria, and Winston, right? So you're basically just combining the whole array list in this case and printing it as a string with some commas after it, okay? That's basically it for now. We are going to also add another print. And this is gonna say the black card reads the following column, some space. And now we are going to start calling the functions that we have created, right? So in this case, we need print black card. We need to call print black card, and we need to pass black cards, right? Or B cards in this case. B cards. We need to call the print white cards function. Print white cards and W cards. And these are coming from here, of course. As you can see, we're going to pass the cards to the function, and these are going to be used within the function itself, right? All right, so we have, in the white cards, we still need to pass players as well, right? So we need players and white cards. For the black cards, we don't need, because basically the program itself is grabbing one black card, presenting it to the user, and then each user is going to have a white card. And last, this is the last function, we need to define a quit message, right? Quit message doesn't take anything. It's just a print statement that's going to say, thanks for playing this game. Playing this game, right? That's pretty much it for the functions. I'm going to add a bit of a separation here. These are the 4 or 5 functions that we are going to use in our program, okay? So as you can see, you have couple of import statements. You have the 5 functions, and now we are going to have the flow of execution in our program, right? This is pretty much our logic, how everything is going to work, etc. So we are going to start with a while loop, while true, right? We're going to ask the user now a few questions, right? So we need a input method, which is built into Python. Let's call this variable user input. And we are going to call the input function, right? So that's the input method function, whatever you want to call it, but that's built into Python, right? So please, sorry, you need to actually create within quotes. Now, please enter player we're going to concatenate here. This is a string function, len function, and we're going to pass players. Now, at this moment, the first time that we actually print anything to the user, this list is going to be set to 0. It starts counting from 0. So if you don't do something here to add an extra number, let me just finish this function and I'll show you what I actually mean by that. We have to concatenate here something, and this needs to be closed, and we need to say name, type play to start playing. Just gonna add that in parentheses. Type play to start playing, or quit to end the game, right? To end the game. Okay, so as I said, players is a list, and the first iteration in our loop, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any names, right? So it's going to display here. Please enter player 0 name. Okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So what I'm going to do here is to add +1, which is going to say basically it means, it has to actually be outside of this. It has to be within the string. I think I have an extra here. Yeah. String. Play players len. Wait, where's that error coming from? Let's do a +1 here. And players. Undefined name players. Oh, sorry. One thing that I didn't mention that we need to have is a variable called players. That's gonna be an empty list. Yeah, sorry, I was forgetting that one. So now it makes a lot of sense. We are actually creating an input function and asking the user, please enter player 1 name, enter player 2 name. Those need to be stored somewhere. So they are gonna be stored within our, I'm going to show you how it works now, but let's first do the flow of execution. So in this case, we need if user input is equal to play. So if the user enters play, and one thing that we need to do here, because the user might type in capital letters, you need to consider that as well. So in this case, I'm going to use lower just to make sure anything that the user enters is converted to lowercase. So if the user types play, okay, I'm going to call the function play game. Play game. And play game, as we know, takes players, a list of players. Takes, the black cards and the white cards, which we need to actually call also. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to copy paste it. We need to call them somewhere, right? So now this is the function fetch data. First, we are getting the white cards, and second, we're getting the black cards, and we're giving them the name they deserve, actually, white cards and black cards. And now we are calling play games down here, and we know play game takes black card and white card. So we are already calling it, so we just need to pass it here, right? White cards and black cards, okay? Cool. Next, after we run the program again, like once, let's say, we are gonna keep rolling this, right? Because that's inside of a while loop, and the while loop is basically always going to be running because we have set while to true, right? So unless we break out of that while loop, it's not gonna break out by itself. So we need to have some mechanism, okay? First of all, because we are calling this once, after we call it once, we need to actually clear this list of players, okay? Because we want to start with an empty array, okay? After that. Now, I'm gonna add another elif user input, same as before, but with a quit option, user input, quit, okay. And we are gonna present the quit message if the user types quit, and the quit message we created before. And if they, if they don't wanna play anymore, we have to break out of the while loop. Let's see. Does that make sense, right? Okay. So now, if the user wants to play, basically, if they type play, we are gonna run the play game function, right? If they just add names, we don't want to do anything. We just want to add the names to the list that we have created that's called players, right? So this is a good place to add it. Players dot append user input, right? So basically we ask the users enter a few names. They're going to enter one name, press enter. That name is going to be stored in the list called players. Second name the same, third name the same. It doesn't really matter. There's no limit to play. The user is just going to keep adding names one after the other. Okay. Let's try our program. This is basically it. It's really simple. We're talking about 54 lines of code. It's not massive. There are a couple more URLs that we could be fetching, but that's something that I'm going to leave for you if you want to experiment with this game. Now let's try our game. See how this works. I'm just going to clear this and I'm going to run. All right, so please enter player one name, type play to start playing or quit to end the game. So I want to enter Josh as the first name. Now, please enter player two. You see, it's adding numbers dynamically. So the second player that I want is Mark. Enter player three, Maria. Enter player four, Anthony, enter player 5, Peter, right? Now, I don't want to enter any more names. I want to actually play the game right now. So just type play, right? Awesome. So now let's start playing Josh, Mark, Maria, Anthony, and Peter. These are all my players, right? The card reads the following: edible underpants. In Michael Jackson final moments, he thought about blah, blah, blah. Okay, there is something different about it. I want to take a moment and think about it for a second. We are actually printing the white card here, and we are printing the black card here. So there is a bug in our program, and it doesn't necessarily mean the program doesn't run. It runs, but it doesn't run correctly, right? So it's kind of a semantic bug in this case. The program runs fine, but there is something messed up here. We have to go to our cards. Here is fine. The problem is not here. The problem is we are passing the wrong cards here. We should be passing. You see, the play game takes the black cards first and the white cards. So I totally messed up here. So we have to pass white cards second. Order does matter in this case, so you have to be aware of this and pass in the order that you have defined yourself before, okay? Now, again, stop this and we run. Player 1 is going to be Mark. Player 2 is going to be Maria. Player 3 is going to be Anthony. Player 3 is going to be Peter. And we only have 4 players at this time because one of them left, got drunk, and is now in the toilet getting sick. Now play. Right. Now let's start playing Mark, Maria, Anthony, and Peter. The card reads the following: what's the crustiest? Mark, 8 ounces of sweet Mexican black tar heroin. Maria, peace. Anthony, a bop it. I have no idea what that is. Peter, the force. So now it keeps asking you if you want to play or you want to actually enter more names. And right now I just want to quit. So it says, thanks for playing this game. So you broke out of the while loop and that's the end. You can play that again if you want. Enter different names, whatever names you want. It doesn't necessarily matter what you enter here, as long as you enter play at the end. So that's basically it. Anthropologists have recently discovered a primitive tribe that worships crippling death, poorly timed Holocaust jokes, dry heaven attitude. Anyway, so you can keep playing if you enter play again, or you can keep entering names in this case. And play again. That's going to print, play as a name, but it doesn't matter. Still, it kind of works this way. Quit, and we are done here. Okay, so I hope this program helps you somehow to understand how Python works. It has been very, very small. It's very basic. Give it a go. Try to actually fetch the other URLs that I have here. I have another URL, I believe. And I think there is another one. No, it's actually only that. There's black cards 1, black cards 2, and black cards 0. That's fine. You can actually try to get all of this information and incorporate that into your program. Okay? Right. Thank you very much.